here's the deal. It's the second day of the South Dakota archery season, here 2009, and second morning. And we've been watching this alfalfa field and watching these deer, and a couple big bucks come back into this river bottom to bed the last 3 mornings. And unfortunately, they beat us back into the river bottom this morning, but we did get up in the stand because we thought we saw another shooter out in the field. Turns out it's not. But we got a bunch of deer that are heading this way now. We got a decoy out. It's September 27th. We're going to see what happens. Come on along. You're watching In Pursuit Television.
It doesn't take long for cameraman Bob Time and I to find out that our stands are in the perfect spot.
There's a bigger buck coming now. There's a bigger buck coming.
Any doubts that I might have had about the effectiveness of a decoy this early in the season are quickly erased.
Well, that 9-pointer that was just at the decoy is about ready to walk out of the field. And that little family group he had with him, those are the last of the deer that are out in this huge alfalfa field. What an exciting morning. We literally were covered up in deer almost as soon as we got up in the tree. And every buck that came back to the river bottom came to the decoy, walked right up to it. Who says you can't decoy whitetail bucks in early season? It's September 27th, ladies and gentlemen. It was unbelievable. I know that was a pretty good looking deer. Pat West and his nephew Brandon, the guys at Dakota Ranch Outfitters, they manage for big bucks. So that deer will be an incredible deer next year. Besides that, we know there are bigger bucks here using this field. We've been watching one. We've seen him 3 mornings in a row. Unfortunately, the 4th morning when we hunt him, finally figure out how to hunt him, he's not out here this morning at daylight. So you can bet we'll be back tomorrow morning though. You stay tuned. There's more big buck action coming. You're watching In Pursuit Television.
The next morning does indeed find Bob and I right back in that same stand. But unlike the previous morning, there are at least 3 shooter bucks feeding in the alfalfa field. One of those bucks, a giant 10-pointer, starts heading our way.
Big buck.
Seconds later, I spot movement off to our left. Unbelievably, a bunch of bucks, including this big shooter with a split G2, are heading our way from that direction as well. Now this is just too good to be true. But then things suddenly deteriorate. Once the 2 big bucks see each other, they quickly forget about the decoy. Now as you can see, the split G2 buck obviously is a dominant deer here. Once the dominancy issue is settled, the big 10-pointer again starts heading our way. But unfortunately, he passes by just outside of bow range. I look back out in the field and see that the split G2 buck has walked much closer. I range him and find he's right at 31 yards. But just as I'm bringing my Matthews to full draw, a small buck picks me off and blows the whistle. The field in front of us promptly empties, which leaves me more than just a little disappointed. But then I take a look and see that there's still at least 1 more shooter further out in the field, and he's heading our way. Is it possible I'm going to get yet another chance?
He's in the timber. He's gone. It looked pretty good. It was a little far back, but it's angling forward. You saw what we had happen this morning. We were literally covered up in big bucks. I mean, they were coming to the decoy, and then too many bucks showed up, and they started posturing and forgot about the decoy. Pat and Brandon West here from Dakota Ranch Outfitters have got all those big bucks, you know, on scouting camera on the Reconyx. This 5x3 that I shot is a big deer that we've actually targeted for two reasons. He's a big old deer. He's probably 5.5 at least, Pat figures. He wants him out of here. He doesn't want him breeding, obviously. The two other bucks here, the two other shooters I had here were much bigger, but he ain't bad for a consolation prize, especially since that's one of them we targeted. We're gonna give him some time. We're gonna get down. We're gonna go look, see if we can find some blood, see if we can find my arrow. We'll check back in with you. You stay tuned. You're watching In Pursuit Television. You saw the footage of the big deer that we had. At one time or another, since we've been watching them, this deer has bullied each and every one of those bucks that we saw out in the alfalfa field earlier. There's no doubt who the dominant deer was here. And Pat told me, if you get a chance to shoot him, would you shoot him? And I said, absolutely. I mean, I love mature deer, and this, look at him. Look at the mass, and probably one of the biggest bodied whitetails I've ever taken. And by the way, you saw how this deer came to a decoy. I knew just watching his body language and the way he was such a bully in the alfalfa field the last 4 days, all I had to do was get a decoy up and get him to see it, and he'd come into it, and he did. And it was a fatal mistake for him. I'm tickled to death with him. As I always say, this never gets old. It never gets old. You're watching In Pursuit Television.